Color studies for mixed media art are incredibly important for developing your understanding of color as well as your growth as an artist. Today, I'm sharing 4 fun styles of color study, as well as 2 ways to make mini art books to hold all the colorful goodness for your reference. The next 30 minutes may be the most useful for your creativity this whole week. I'm Jackie Bernardi, and welcome to my studio. I'm pretty sure that we can all agree as creatives that color is pretty essential in our work. And so I thought it would be a great idea today to go ahead and do some color studies using only 4 colors and black and white. But I'm going to show you color studies the way that I do them in a variety of different ways with completely different outputs. So what I'm doing here is just pouring out some paints that I'm going to be using. And what I'm going to start with is creating a color field study. All this means is that I am taking the colors and I'm laying them down on my paper in a painterly way. Now you can see this paper already has paint on it. This is actually a piece of paper that I painted a few weeks ago and I've had it laying around. I wrote down what colors I used on it and I knew I would come back to it. I just didn't know how I would come back to it. When I was thinking about the video that I would do for this week and thinking about color studies, I remembered this piece of paper and thought, I have not explored what is capable with the colors that I used here. And so I thought I would do that today. This video actually took on a life of its own, as you will see, but this is a great starting point. So all I'm doing here is taking these 4 colors. I've got light phthalo blue, I've got green gold, red iron oxide, transparent red iron oxide, and oh, it's not on the plate yet, but I also use Derylide yellow, and you'll see that on the plate very soon. I also put down white and black to mix with the colors, just so I can get various shades of what I am working with. So all I've been doing is laying down the paint just raw right onto the previously painted paper. Now remember, the colors that are on the previously painted paper are exactly the same as the colors I'm using here. The difference is when I first laid them down on that piece of paper, I just used them raw. I really didn't mix them very much other than the mixing that happened when I applied them. And I applied them using the catalyst wedge. Right now, I'm just using a brush to lay down the paint, but in a moment, I'll use both the brayer and the catalyst wedge to move them around. So what's happening this time is that I am mixing on the gel plate. I'm using the gel plate as a palette for the moment, not to pull prints. And on it, I am actually mixing the paint colors on the plate and not on the paper as much. Once I lay the mixed colors down on the paper, I'm blending it out with the brayer, and later you'll see me blend it out with a catalyst wedge. So all I'm trying to do here is create the possibilities that can come out of using these 4 colors together. I have to tell you, I don't think I've ever intentionally used these 4 colors together. And so as I'm mixing them, even in this color field study that I'm doing right now, I'm getting quite surprised by the colors that are developing as I mix and then blend them out. This piece of paper here would make a terrific background. It's all really neutral midtones. There's not a lot of contrast or highlight, and that's okay. I'm not really looking for that right now. I'm just really just trying to see what kind of expression I can get out of the colors as I go. And I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to set this plate to the side for a moment and continue on using the same 4 colors. It is about 6 hours later, and what I'm going to do now is a palette exploration. So I just took the piece of paper that I created the color field study on, and I flipped it over. The paint's completely dry now. I flipped it over and I drew 1 inch by 1 inch squares on the back side of the color field painting. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in and I'm going to fill in every single one of those squares with hopefully different colors using only the 4 colors in black and white that I used in the color field study. Okay, so this is a more intensive exploration than the color field study was. Since this piece of paper is a 9-inch by 12-inch piece of watercolor paper, that's going to give me 108 different colors if I go ahead and complete the entire backside. So will they be wildly different? Well, some of them will be, and some of them will be very, very close, and some of them may end up being pretty much the exact color as another square on the plate. But will look differently based on the colors that are blended, or excuse me, the colors that are mixed and placed next to it. You'll see in a moment. What you're seeing me do right now is something that was actually a little bit frustrating for me, I have to say. What I thought I'd start with is doing a block of the solid color just plain. So you can see the upper left-hand block is that light phthalo blue, and that's pure. It's not mixed with anything. And then I went over it with a little bit of white to lighten it, and then I mixed it with a little bit of the black to darken it. Usually when I do a color study, I like to have each color that's in the study as a pure block someplace, and then also blended with a little bit of white, and then also blended with a little bit of black so that you can get sort of the potential light end to dark end field for them. What happened today when I was doing that, and I'm always just very direct with you all, I got super frustrated doing it, so I stopped. And I decided I'm just going to get to the color mixing because that's really, really what I want to be doing today. And that's what you see me doing here. Now, as I mix the colors, there's not really a particular rhyme or reason. And this is the reason why I'm using the giant gel plate as my palette for this, because it's a very large field for me to mix colors on. And it gives me plenty of space to try new things and try different things. But as I lay the paint down on the paper itself, I really am not necessarily looking to go like one color family from light to dark or whatever. You'll see by the time this is done, it's going to be very patchwork, and you'll see different colors next to one another and different tones next to one another, different values next to one another. This first line going across is all somewhat close, but as you'll see shortly, I really mix it up. What I am trying to do here, the real exercise here, is to stretch myself creatively by trying to get as many colors as I can out of just these 4 colors in black and white, and then also to see how these colors work with one another. I'll explain what I mean by that with a little more detail. Some of you may remember that Derylide Yellow came into my life last year, and I fell madly in love with it, which was a big deal for me because I'm not much of a yellow lover. But there's something about this particular yellow that I love. However, having said that, Derylide Yellow is like that really over boisterous uncle that you might have that sucks all the oxygen out of the room when he's in it, right? His personality takes over everything. And this Derylide Yellow, as I'm discovering today, is actually very similar. It is really hard to mix this color with the other colors and have balance. And this is one of the genius things that you learn when you're color mixing with a limited palette, right? You learn the characteristics of each individual colors, and you learn their temperaments, for lack of a better word. So since I know that Derylide Yellow wants to be the boss of all the colors, right? It wants to be in charge. It wants the end mix to look like it. When using it, you have to work really hard and use the colors in ways that will reduce the impact of that initial yellow and really help it to develop into a very sophisticated color. And this is what you're seeing here. Even with these blues that you see me working on right now and this green, there is the Darylide yellow mixed in it, and yet I've managed to tame the wild beast of that yellow. Now, I know I'm talking about the yellow a lot here, but it was a really big learning challenge for me. So that I know in the future when I use Darylide yellow, depending on what the project is, I may want to use a very light hand with it because it is extremely powerful. And without doing this type of color study, I may have never learned that. So this is why you want to do color studies. You'll learn more about each individual color. You'll learn about the surprise element of color mixing, and you'll learn how to be very intentional with your color mixing. Now that I'm getting to the end of this, you can see what I was talking about, right? This is all patchwork. I wasn't concerned about keeping darks with darks and lights with lights. I just kind of wanted to mix and have the freedom to be intuitive with the mixing as I went. I'm going back in now to finish the frustrating light and dark with each original color. That's the green gold there that I'm working on now, and I'm feeling much happier about it. I'm not worried that these squares don't look like the other squares. It's not really the point. This what you're seeing here is an incredible reference for me to keep in a notebook or to do what I'm going to show you in a moment with them. But it's an incredible reference to have handy for when I'm working on a project and I get stuck color-wise and I think, oh, what would be a great color to go here? I can look at this card and say, oh, wait a minute, that stone blue is the absolute perfect blue I need. And now I know how to make it because I created this color study for it. You'll see in a minute, I do write down what the colors, the 4 original colors were. I don't have it on here. You'll see it in a little bit later. But it is really important for you to write down what colors you used. Otherwise, you'll forget. It just happens. Now that we have the color field study on one side of the paper and the color block study on the other side of the paper, we're going to do something really fun with it that will help keep your reference colors within handy reach at all times. And what we're going to do is we're going to make mini concertina art books. And they're going to be filled with these colors. Now, this one here in my hand is just a sample to show you that you can make an entire book out of one page. This one with the stripes on it, the stripes are representing the color field side of the paper, and the blank pages are representing the color block side of the paper. So I'm going to show you step by step right now how to make a concertina book. And I'm going to do my best to be really clear with the instruction. It is not hard to do. And the technique that I'm going to teach you, you can do with any size piece of paper so long as it is squared off, meaning that you have nice straight edges, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to take your piece of paper. This here in my hand is a bone folder. I have a metal ruler. I like using a metal ruler when cutting. I've got a straight edge blade and an X-Acto knife and a pencil. What I'm going to do is take the long edge of the paper. This is just a 9 by 12 piece of paper. I'm going to take the long edge and I'm going to fold it over and match it to the other long edge. I'm also going to put my glasses on because that's important. And I'm just going to make sure that the edges line up, and then I'm going to take the bone folder and make a nice sharp crease in the paper. Then I'm going to flip it over fold it in the reverse direction and use the bone folder again so that I have two really nice, crisp, sharp, folded sides, and the paper is more flexible that way. Then I'm going to take one of the long edges and I'm going to fold it onto itself to the middle edge of the paper, to the middle seam of the paper. Okay, and again, I'm going to flip it over and use the bone folder on both sides of the fold so that's flexible. And I turn the paper around and I fold it back onto itself again to the middle, from the long edge to the middle, and then bone folder both sides of that, right here one side, and now opening it up, flipping it over, and using the bone folder on the other. So what I've created here are 4 columns, right? And you'll see in just a moment that edge didn't feel too crisp, but I have 4 columns here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this paper and I'm going to fold it over from the short edge to the short edge and do the exact same process. I'm going to use the bone folder to make that seam nice and crisp, and then I'm going to open it up, fold it in reverse, and get the seam again. And again, I'm going to take the short edge and I'm going to fold it up onto itself to the middle seam and create a nice sharp edge, first with my hand and then with the bone folder. Reverse it, get that seam nice and flexible, and then take the other edge, go up to the middle, create a fold again, use the bone folder, flip it over, use the bone folder again, and then open it up. And what I have now is 16 squares that I've made out of this. Voila, right? Isn't that great? And this works with any size piece of paper. It doesn't matter. I'm just using it with this 9x12. You can use it with any size piece of paper, so long as you keep folding it over by half on itself each time, it will work. Now that I have the 16 boxes, what I'm going to do is take the pencil and I'm going to mark off the middle seam 1 square down from the top. And you'll see in a moment why that's important. Then I'm going to flip the paper around, and on one block down to the seam on both the left and right, I'm going to make a mark also. Those marks represent the starting point for the cut that you're going to make. So from the top, you'll go 1 block down in that middle seam, and then you'll start cutting from the bottom of that first block, and you'll go right down that middle seam. Then you'll flip the paper around and go back, just like I just did, and go to that left-hand seam, 1 block down, and cut it all the way down to the bottom. And then go over to the right-hand seam, which you'll see from the top-down view. 1 block down from the top where you made that mark, and cut it all the way to the bottom. All right, so you've got 2 legs on the outside and 2 legs on the inside. And what you'll see is you're able to fold each of those blocks onto one another. It's like magic. It really is like magic. It's so cool, right? And so now you have a book. You actually have a book of these individual pages. Now, I just showed you that on just a plain piece of paper. I've already made those cuts on our color study piece of paper. So the side that you're seeing here is the color field side, and the back side are the color blocks. So I've already done the cutting that you just saw me do on the sample. And now all I have to do is start folding it up, folding it onto itself. And once you start doing this, you'll see it's very easy. It will tell you exactly how to fold itself onto itself, if that makes sense. There's really just one way to do it. And when you're done and you start flipping through, you see all the color fields, right? And you see them now differently instead of the whole sheet, you're getting a mini story with each page that you open. They all look different. They're the same colors, but they're the same colors and they appear differently on every single page, right? That's so cool. Oh, I love that. I love how that red oxide showed up the way that it did in that one spot. Now, when you flip the book over, all you see are the color blocks. So the point is when you do it double-sided like this, not only do you see the color blocks raw, like, oh, I could make this color or that color or whatever. If you flip it over and look at it from the color field side of the book, you get to see how those colors can intermingle to make a story, right? It's so cool. Plus, they're totally portable because they're so small, right? So don't worry, I'm going to show you this again in a different way because this is not the only way to make a mini concertina. The second way, what we're going to do is we're going to actually cut the paper apart, not cut it and have it held together like the first one. This time we're going to cut the paper apart. So I already did all the folding on this piece of paper, and this piece of paper is, I think, 12 by 16. It's legal size paper because I did want to show you that this works no matter what type of paper you have. Actually, it's bigger than 12 by, I don't know what the size, it's a piece of newsprint, and the dimension will be in the description below. So I had already done the folding. I have 16 squares, not squares, 16 rectangles, let's just say, that I was able to make out of it. And what I'm doing now is I am just cutting down the length of each column, okay? Not the width, but the length. And what I'll get out of this is 4 individual columns. And that's exactly what I want for this particular style of concertina book. All right. Now, a side note, I would not use newsprint for this exercise. If you're doing a real color study and you want to keep it, newsprint is just flimsy and it won't hold up. So just that's a sidebar. So what I've done here is I've taken 2 of the strips and I put them end to end, and I've used a piece of white artist tape, just that's 1-inch white artist tape, and I have taped one side of these papers together, and then I'm just going to take the straight edge and cut off the tape. This is a self-healing mat that I'm doing the work on. And then remove the pieces of paper, and then you've got a long strip of paper, right? I'm doing the same thing with the second one. All right, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to join the 2 long pieces that were just made by taping the 4 shorter pieces. And I am just put them all together, use same thing again, use the tape to create a binder between the seams. And now we have one really long piece of paper, okay? That one really long piece of paper has 16 rectangles in it, right? And so I am just going to fold them over and fold them over again. Like I said before, I would not use newsprint if this was going to be a color study that I wanted to keep forever. I would use something more sturdy like the watercolor paper or even cardstock. But right here, all I'm doing is a demonstration of how to make this type of concertina book, right? So look at that. It's long, it's beautiful. And what we would do with this is exactly what I am about to show you with one that I started yesterday. And this is what I'll call a quick palette exploration, because instead of 108 colors, all we're going to get here are 16, and 4 of the 16 are the raw colors that we're using, right? So this piece of paper here, just to show you that I used a gel plate to create the color field side of this concertina book. So this here, the color field side, I used a gel plate, just pulled prints directly onto the paper. Then I folded the paper up, cut them into the strips like you just saw me do before, and taped them together. So all that's left to do is to do the color block study on the back side of the color field for this particular concertina book. And then we have a second study that is completely different than the first study that we did, even though we're using the exact same colors. So color blending wise, some of the colors may match up, but the way that we see and experience the color study, which you'll see in a moment when we're finished with this, is completely different than that first one that we just did. Hang with me. Oh, this color right here, this mahogany brown, I would have never guessed, never in a million years guessed that using these 4 colors and black, that I would be able to get mahogany brown, and I did, and it's a glorious color. So is this seafoam, or whatever you want to call this last color here. Just beautiful. And you can see, right? That's just fun. That's 16 colors. That didn't take any time. And yes, I sped up the film, but like really, in real life, it didn't take any time. So the glorious thing about doing your color mixing on a gel plate, or using your gel plate as a palette, I should say, is that you're always going to end up with a print, right? And so this is a third color study option. Look at that. Now that's wild. Now those are colors that, first off, that's something that I would have never painted in a million years. So the serendipity that happens on a gel plate is just remarkable. And at first I was like, wow, that's really dark and ugly. And then I was like, oh no, it's not. That is gorgeous. And so is this one. Look at this. Like, who would have guessed with these 4 colors together that this type of intense and unctuous type of paint color would come out of it, right? So this is like half the color study here. And I'm just going to fold up this concertina. It's still, truthfully, it's still a little damp. I did this pretty quickly. I'm not worried about it, but I just wanted to show you the final result of this particular mini concertina. And so we have the colors that we mixed on the one side. And again, this is very floppy because it's newsprint. I would encourage you to use a heavier paper. And then you flip it over, and then you have the beautiful color. Look at that. Oh, you have this beautiful color field study to give you even more ideas and inform you on ways you might want to use the colors in a mixed media piece. I love that. And you could store that by hanging it, or you could fold it up like this one here and wrap it around with a rubber band to hold it together. Or there's any number of ways to store it. But imagine you're traveling and you want to paint while you're traveling. You can only have room in your luggage for 4 colors in black and white. You could bring a complete color study with you in your pocket and know exactly what you want to do when you get there. Now, the final pull today would be the giant gel plate pull. And so this is another way to do the color study, right? This is an end result of our color study today, but you could totally do a color study on a gel plate all on, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This looks like, I don't know, a coral reef or I love this. And this just came from using those 4 colors. How beautiful and intense is that? Right? So what we have here in reality is not just one color study or 4 color studies. What we actually have is a comprehensive color study that we can make as small or as large as we want and an incredible set of learning skills to be developed. I really hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you will take the time to explore the colors that you have, pick colors at random like I did, and just see how they work together. They will work together, I promise you. Now, if you like this a lot, I wish you would subscribe to my channel, and then I would watch this video next.